Welcome to the Business Grind, where we give you an inside perspective on what it takes to start, build, and run a successful business. Here are your hosts, Danny Shaw and Sean Michael Wellington.
All right. Hello to everyone in podcast land today. Thanks for joining us. Sean, how are you feeling?
Feeling good this week, and we're going to do some money talk this week, aren't we?
Yeah, let's get the money talk. All right. So today's episode, we have Mr. Hugh Johnson on our show today. Mr. Johnson is my accountant, but also the head of his own accounting firm and business as a whole. I know I'm probably not even speaking to everything he does, so I'm just going to say Mr. Johnson, president of HAMJ, also my accountant, but welcome to the show, Mr. Johnson.
Hey, Danny and Sean. It's a pleasure. As you said, I'm an accountant. I'm the owner and founder of HAMJ Inc., the acronym from my name, which is Hugh Anthony Michael Johnson. That's what the name was, HAMJ was derived. Mm-hmm. And I've been an accountant for most of my working life. I obtained some of my working experiences, from working with 3 public accounting firms, and also I was an assistant financial controller with Citibank.
Citibank. Okay, cool. So you've been an accountant for most of your life, and so how did the transition come about from accounting to having your own accounting services?
What happened is HAMJ is an accounting firm, and we've been in business for about, 29 years. And we prepare both personal and business returns. But, my accounting background started as an external auditor. And at some point, I just kind of wanted to look at the other side of the financial aspect, which is taxes. And so that's how pretty much everything started.
Did you have an affinity for math and numbers already before you jumped into this career path, or did you find your way into this?
I my family members, my brother and cousins of mine, they were the math genius. They're the one who taught me areas that I struggled with. They kind of helped me with. So I was, I would say, I'm A plus math student, but I could handle myself, with the help of my brothers. They kind of taught me. So, yeah.
And then I'm just curious from the perspective of being a business owner, you hear a lot that creatives, right, it's the right side of your brain and the left side of your brain, but it seems like accounting and business, they're the same side. So was it an easy transition for you to go from working for firms and working for companies to working for yourself?
Yeah, something, I'm going to tell you, the learning, the curve wasn't bad. I think what helped me, why the transition wasn't as hard, was because I had my accounting background. So I was kind of disciplined with the numbers are concerned, doing the books myself. I didn't need an accountant to advise me with the numbers or anything like that. And so to move from that into start my own business wasn't hard. And it's so funny that the way it's actually started. Because what happened was I was working for this company, and I took a course. And this course that I took, I wanted to kind of know more about personal taxes. So I took this course with a pretty large firm. It's one of those franchise firms, not to call it a name or such, but I took a tax course with them, and I kind of liked it. And so I started to I worked two days a week with them, and on a Saturday, I kind of just wanted to see exactly what it was like. And it turned out that I kind of liked it. And all the transition came, it wasn't really by accident, but my beeper started to go off at the start of the tax season, because I started to work with this company. And a lot of people started to call me, and I was like, I need to make a decision here. And so what I did was I took some time off from work for 2 weeks, and then I called him and asked for another 2 weeks. But guess what? I never returned. Because to this day, I said to myself that, listen, this company, they're successful. They're a pretty good firm, and I say, this might just be my time, and I'm really a risk taker. So it wasn't kind of that hard. So I just kind of bite the bullet, and I just went for it. And I remember one day I was speaking to this friend of mine, and I mentioned to her that I'm thinking of starting my own company, and she said to me, "Are you crazy? You're going to leave a 9-to-5, a steady job. You can take care of your family and your son." That was you, Junior. Was my son. Was very young at the time. And I said, that's ridiculous. And so as I listened to her, I said to myself, all right, she's I call them wet blanket. People who just don't have the vision, and for some reason, because she didn't have the vision of that, she was kind of killing my dream. So that became my cornerstone. The things that I wanted to get into and involved in, I just kept it to myself because I did not want anyone to kind of be that wet blanket to kind of kill my dream. Right. And so I just went for it.
You was doing taxes on the side, but then one year on tax season, the beeper, for you youngins out there, people we have beepers, right? But your beeper, so the beeper was just going off so busy during tax season that it just forced you to take time off from your job.
Right. Because I've been doing this. I had my company for I'd say 29 years, and so what happened was when I decided to make this run, I remember sitting down and I came up with a name, and I wanted to secure an easy telephone number that people would remember. So remember at the time, I had to make a deposit of $300 to secure such a number with the telephone company. So I went down to John Street, that's in the Wall Street Financial District, made that deposit, got it, came back up, and got the name, bought an answering machine, connected. I remember saying to my son, whenever this phone rings, never, ever answer this phone. Because I was starting to build my infrastructure, so to speak. And so that's actually where I started. But my thing was, I was starting in my living room. And I didn't want my clients to come, or my prospective clients to come to my home. So one of the things I did is that I said, listen, don't leave your home and come out in the cold. Wherever you are, I will come to you. And that's what I did. Wherever my client was. And some of the trips that I made might not have been practical. A few critics would say it just didn't make financial sense. Not only did I travel just through the 5 boroughs, but I remember one of my first clients in Hartford, Connecticut, was a 2-hour ride. And I drove all the way to Hartford just for one client. Now, probably the gas and everything was even more than my fees. But my thing was, I built my business on service. And that's the mantra, that's the cornerstone. So I had no problem driving to Connecticut just for that one client. Because the following year, I got a family. And it's the same thing I did. I flew to Florida for one client. That was ridiculous because why would you fly to Florida for just one client, just to airfare again? But I saw the vision again. It's all about service. Now I have more than 100 clients in Florida. So my thing, I think if I offer good service, then I think everything will fall into place.
What made you, go so hard that I'm going to Florida, I'm going to Connecticut, I don't care. This is a part of my brand. I just believe in service. I think that I've never advertised in the newspaper. I never paid for advertisement. I built my company just by service. I think that will speak for itself. So I just try to whatever I do. When I started out, I just give everything my all once I start a company. And I feel that if I give it my all, and if I can let them see the difference between myself and another company, that will speak for itself. And so at the time, there was no internet service or, Facebook or anything like that. So I just thought that I had to just give good quality service. If I give that, and so I started to just doing that. My business card was like my American Express. Everywhere I went, one of my policy was I never gave out one business card because I think each person has a friend and they have family members. I normally give out a minimum of 3 business cards. And so if I went to a restaurant just to buy food, I'm going to give out my business card. If I went to a funeral service, I'm sorry, but I'm going to be adding some cards at the funeral service. And I say that seriously. Everywhere I went, if I paid a toll going over in the bridge, the toll clerk, I give them these 3 cards. If I go to the post office to buy stamps, I give the postal clerk. So I do to this day have postal workers who are retiring now, who I got them just by being that determined, or just by just being this gung ho of just pushing my company that well. And so from the start, I feel if I can offer something different, just different from my competitors, from somebody else, I think it will speak volume. And so to this day, I focus and build my business just on
service, just stand out.
Early on, your business was in your house, right? You don't want your clients to
Yes,
come. So,
right.
but you also talk about your vision on what you thought. So, how did I guess the process from what was the vision overall when you were in that living room, and what was the process behind building it to that overall vision that you had in mind?
All right. I started out in my living room. I didn't want to disrupt my home life. That much I know. So I feel at the time that the traffic coming into my home, I didn't have to do that because of what I was doing. So pretty much I knew from day one was that I'm going to go to my clients wherever they are. So that was the basis for everything. So as I get a new client, I used to drive to Manhattan to Wall Street to meet prospective clients. I'd sit in my car during their lunch break. They'd come into my car. I would sit and we talk and get information from them. And at the time, because I was in my living room, what I did to each person's home, initially when I go to someone's home, I would take carbonized paper. So what I would do is sometimes, because instead of taking it back to my home and then take it back to them, I'd sit and do the return in their home. And so I would have 3 copies because from those carbonized paper, I just do 3 returns. I would just do a return. The first one that would be for the clients to mail, another one for their copy, and one for myself. So I didn't have a copy machine, but I just had to be creative with whatever thing I do from day one. I try to be creative. So my thing was that regardless wherever you are, I am going to come to you. So that's what each person that I spoke with, I said, doesn't matter where you are. You're in Brooklyn, I'll come. You're in Connecticut, I will come to you. It doesn't matter because I know at some point it might not be cost effective immediately, but I guarantee you with service, and as I build my client base, because each person is going to tell somebody they're going to be pleased with what I'm doing, and at some point that curve will move up to profitability. And so I just didn't watch the numbers in terms of my outlay of expenses in a sense because I knew at some point it's going to pay off. And so that's just what I did. It's so funny though, the way I moved from my bed, from my living room, because when somebody calls that office, that number that I have for 29 years that I got, and then you get that outgoing message, they would think it was an office. It sounds like a professional thing. So it's all about having that so-called infrastructure. But you had to have some form of infrastructure when someone calls and they think they call in an office. Mm-hmm. That's why I couldn't let my son answer the phone. Mm-hmm. And so as I built from that, how I moved from my living room into my first office space it was kind of funny because I got my first corporate client. Someone referred her to me, and that person is still my client now that visits. What happened was they needed a payroll audit to be done. This is my first business client. And I said, listen, I've never done this before, but I'm going to read, I'm going to learn. I'm never going to say no. I'm good because, I turn my back on that, I just couldn't do that. But that was just never in me. So what I did, I tried to rent a desk space, you'd call it. And I said, listen, I'll rent a desk from you. I went on White Plains Road in different neighborhoods to get a desk space, even for $75 for the day or just a couple hours, but no one had any. And so I stumbled onto this office, and this guy was renting this office space. A friend of mine, he's in insurance, and he said, hey, there's an office space here, but I'm like, I didn't want such a commitment. I didn't want a lease. I didn't want, because at the time, I didn't have enough business clients to have that steady cash flow coming in to maintain the type of expense that I'd be, picking up. But I took it, and I said, listen, I'm going to figure it out, So the rent at the time might have been way back then. Let's say it might have been $600. It was, so I got it and I took it. So I said to myself, all right. And so I got the client, I got the audit, and everything went very well. I said, all right, how am I going to pay for this? January 1st, my rent is due for my office. January 15th, my rent is due for my apartment. So I'm going to juggle. So what I would do, I'd pay that rent, my office rent, and trust me, I'm going to get that money in 14 days' time to pay the rent at my home. I can't afford to be evicted. And so I did it. You see, I had that much confidence in myself that I know I don't care what, I am going to succeed. I am going to get that money. And I did it for a little while with just one business client. I started it out, So the tax season would end, and what did I do? I have a lease for the office space, and so what I did is that, and there was no turning back. I I decided I'm going to register with a temp agency. Doing a temp agency, it allows me the flexibility. Once the tax season comes around again in January, I can just leave, and then I could just keep doing this until I build my client base,
Mm-hmm.
But that's how the transition went from my living room to my first office space,
Oh,
It just was a leap of faith.
that's a very tight turnaround from the 1st to the 15th for the rent
Yes.
and the client.
Yes, yeah, it worked. It worked, but it was kind of close.
So at what point,
Yeah.
you're doing that back and forth, the 15-day turnaround for month over month. What
Mhm.
was it more like just a steady growth year over year that allowed you to say, okay, I don't need to do this anymore, and I can get a more permanent situation? Because I know like now you have like a corner, your office and a
Mhm.
staff and a team. So how long was
Right.
that overall transition?
You know what happened? Because I was really hungry. I was really, really hungry and determined
Mm-hmm.
to really build my brand. So as I said, I would take a little a temp job here and there, so I got some income coming in.
Mm-hmm.
But then at some point, I just left that because my key was minimize expenses at all.
Mm-hmm.
That was my key. So I got in space, and so the good thing with this is just that yes, I had the rent, I had the telephone, but the utility was a part of the rent, so that wasn't too bad. And so I just actually just built my client just started to grow just by word hearsay,
Mm-hmm.
friends just started telling friends and so forth. So over a period of time, it grew. I'm trying to figure out trying to remember because it's been so long, but I mean after a while. But the thing was, at no point in time, fortunately, I was at the point where I was kind of threatened with eviction in a sense because I made it work. So even if I had to do then I from that person with an audit, that person had gave me a write up. So that person became a monthly client, and guess what? They had two other companies. They had a real estate office, and so I was doing like two different. There are three companies, so I was the accountant doing the write up. So that's three income. Well, the billing process with them was somewhat decent. So the amount of money that I kind of needed to pay that rent was kind of not right. I was kind of breaking even at some point afterwards. And she told another friend and another friend, and so Bill, friends just started telling friends, individuals, and then I saw the importance of getting that monthly client just to get that steady flow. But although during the tax season, though, when I was a key that when I was at this company, this place working, those 2 days as a tax preparer, I remember one thing while I was there, I became like one of their favorites because when my other co-workers would stop for lunch and take a lunch, I never stopped for lunch. I worked through lunch, and so at the end of the day, I would ended up doing probably 15 returns when they might have done 5 or so. But I just wanted just to learn as much as I can, and I made it, but it turned out to be the best move that I've made, and I'm still here,
Yeah, you're still here. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm mad at that. Sean, any thoughts, Sean?
Right.
No, it just is. It reminds me of The Pursuit of Happiness. How he wasn't taking lunch. It sounds like you predated that story, so he might have got that idea from you. But yeah, it's just, that's the first thing I thought of is Chris Gardner skipping lunch to get more sales calls in, be more efficient. So
and I'm about to get clown because I've never seen the movie, but I know the gist, so I'll take your.
Yeah, you get the idea though. He worked really hard.
I've seen a few scenes and memes about it, so yeah. So, Mr. Johnson, what you've been in this industry for so long. It's pretty much it seems like you got a good rhythm and cycle with it. Obviously, what would you say has been the hardest part of the business so far, or running the business?
The roughest part might have been initially. Challenging was just getting some funds, a little capital in initially, because I tend to, whenever money comes in, I kind of want to plug it back into my company and build, and so the capital, I had to kind of figure out how can I get that money to come in to just buy a few more computers and do all the things. So initially, that might be a little challenge at some point in terms of getting enough cash to buy the software, but it cost a couple of $1,000s at the time. The company I was doing, and then just do a couple of things. But again, I became a little creative in how I did that. I would probably get it from a family member or whatever, but give them a little interest on it or whatever, just to make it a little lucrative for the both of us, and so forth. So that was that's a little challenge that I faced initially, for you two or whatever. But my thing was always is to pump back, build my working capital, build from that, and so as I build, because I wanted to be smarter in terms of, I said, the more computers I have, the more people can hire, the more returns I can do, and the less hours I can work in a sense, So just wanted to work a little smarter.
I'm just curious, has any of the people in your staff gone on and started businesses of their own and followed in your footsteps, followed your examples at all?
I'm going to be honest with you, most of my staff, I've been fortunate, really been fortunate to retain most of them. So I have people who have been working for me for 20 years, 18 years or whatever. Because one of the things I did is that I feel if I treat my staff very, very well, they will stay. And so I treat them. So most of my staff, if you walk in there, 90% of they've been there for years. Some might be seasonal, but they come back. And so no one has ever left to branch out to start a competitive business of mine, because they've been other things, so to speak. So might be if they're seasonal, they might be a paralegal, they might be doing other things, and so they come back afterwards. But most of my staff is that I can say they've been there for a long period of time, and the key to that is I try to reward them, I try to pay them, I try to take care of them in that respect, and I treat them like family. And at the end of each tax season, one of the things that I do, I take them out to appreciation dinner. Every year, and I've been this for years, and I'm talking about some serious restaurant, just to say thank you for being committed, thank you for the work that you do, and I think the fact that I have your back, it relates to that. They became somewhat loyal to me because they realized I was committed to them. It just wasn't about me and just making that money, but I treated them as family, and so to date, none of them has branched out to start their own company. But they're still with me.
We cover a lot of tech companies or tech case studies, right? And that's usually a lot of things that we talk about. But it's interesting in their approach, they focus a lot on taking loans and getting money from other folks ASAP, right? Before being profitable. And it looks like in your case, it was you knew you was going to be profitable just off the numbers alone. The cash flow wasn't really coming, but you kept pumping it into the business as opposed to taking on leveraging, a large amount of debt, which I think makes sense because you are an accountant, so that you knew.
Right, and that's it. I never had a large debt. Had a large debt.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things is that is accounts receivable. I don't have accounts receivable, and a few of my clients taught me that very well. And so some of them, Sherlock Holmes, a detective, the private eye person, Sherlock Holmes. And I didn't want to have to run and try to find those people who never came back and pay me. So my thing is that I never give the return unless it's paid for, because once you give the return prior to, then there's no incentive to come back to pay you. Right. So the incentive is that I'll keep it, and then you can come and pay me, or I offer a bank product. So if you don't have the cash up front, that's no problem. The fees can be deducted. So I can answer all the situation right there. If you don't have the cash, I offer you a bank product. If you don't want to go to bank product, you got to pay. But I'll keep the return. You don't have to keep it for 5 months until you come back. But I just don't believe it. But I don't believe in accounts receivables.
For the audience, for the audience that might not be aware, accounts receivable is essentially the balance on something's due. That essentially means Mr. Johnson. Go ahead, Mr. Johnson.
Oh yeah, no, right. I never have to wait for them to come back and pay me.
Right.
So I'm not going to do the work. And then credit you, and then I'm going to put on the books and wait for you to come in and pay me at your time, because as I said, there's never a sense of urgency when someone have the finished product in their hand. The urgency is there when you have the product and they need it and they got to come to you. So I'm not going to issue. I don't care what it is. I'm going to wait. I'm very patient. It can stay in my file cabinet for 1 year. You will come for it when you're ready. But and so that had been in the early years when I got kind of burnt by a few clients, because I built on that, and so I'm glad for those clients,
right?
Because now that just never happens. It just never happens.
No, I feel Sean. We literally just did an episode like this. Our last episode was about getting burnt, and
Right.
Yeah,
you know,
right, yeah,
so
yeah,
you're not. Johnson's not leaving no money unturned. No accounts receivable.
yeah.
I'm not mad at that. No, that's I will say, and Sean, feel free to correct if I'm wrong, hop in. But I think now as we're talking through it, it seems like Mr. Johnson might be like the first guest that we have, maybe outside of Mark, that has been in the industry for so long, right, and successful. So they have. It seems like they have the gems, or they're telling their success story, where some other folks are a little bit more new into the game, and they're speaking to their trials and tribulations, right?
Right.
But also for this industry, a lot of the lessons that you have spoken to so far could be applied to every industry that we've talked about or covered in this show so far. But I do have a question, right? Because you're known for your accounting services and bank services, but you also have another business, yes?
Yes. All right. Okay. Right. The apparel company, Yardman Style. Yes. It's so funny. How it really started out is that at the end of my tax season, I normally go away just by myself for 4 or 5 days. I just wanted to think, just to, what's the next phase, what's the next step, and I thought about the apparel business, and I said to myself, but the apparel business is very broad, and I'm like, what area would I get into? What is there that no one has done? And so what I did first is that I came up with a name, because I figure, and I kept with the name Yardman Style. I remember when I came up with the name, I said, I'm not going to say to anyone. I just called back my office and said, listen, just do a name search, form a corporation, just do it. And we just start doing it, because I know I was going to do it. Because I know once I'm going to do something, that's it. So I came up with the name and everything, and I said, all right, there's something. There's an urban wear. There's like a little niche. There's a need for the reggae market, so to speak.
Right. And so I don't want to. I'm sorry to cut you off. Just for our audience who may not know, could you explain Yardman Style and like the name and what it means to the audience?
Right. Yeah, I mean, in a nutshell, it's just Yardman Style. It's just going back to your foundation, going back to your roots, in a sense, and that just to keep it as simple as possible.
Okay.
And so the name. So it's so funny that I realized that so many people use the name from time to time, but the name was available to be trademarked, and so I trademarked the name Yardman Style, and also we run things that run we, and I trademarked that also. But what happened just from that, just being being away after the tax season, when I came back, I just started to put things into place, and so I didn't know anything about the apparel business. So what I did, I remember just going into the fashion business. I bought some books and about a couple things, just started to read up about it, and seriously. And I know, and so what I ended up doing is that I said, all right, I flew to Germany. I took it that serious. I flew to Germany. I flew to Cologne, Germany, because I wanted to see a trade show. I wanted to see. I know I'm going to need manufacturers. I'm going to need, in terms of the material. I need, and I had no way to turn. And you know what could kind of guide me. And I went to Cologne, Germany, and I went to that large show there, and I met factories, I met sources, I met designers, I met so many different things, individuals, and so I came back and I said, all right, I have a client base. I'm going to leverage my client base, a couple thousand clients or whatever. So I said, this is what I'm going to do. So what I did is that I came back. I said, let me just start my branding. I said, just let me get a baseball cap. So I got me a baseball cap, and at the time, I just got the name Yardman Style on the cap because I didn't start in serious manufacturing. I just want to see how people would react. I remember I put $10,000 in that company first. I bought some tees, and then I got the name Yardman Style just put on the shirt, and and with my logo. And what I did, my clients, as they came into my office, I just gave each client a T-shirt and a baseball cap. Because guess why? They're going to walk to Brooklyn. They're going to go to Manhattan. They're going to go to Connecticut. They're going to go to Staten Island, and they're going to be wearing this product. So I'm going to use my client to as a leverage to just advertise by just wearing it. And people could ask it, what's your I said, where do you get the company? And so I said, meet regular people who love that. They say, we get a yard, man. We don't put yard, and people start to ask. And so I just want to build a curiosity. And so I started doing that. And from that, but I literally gave away most of those products and as I built a curiosity, then I remember I met a designer and we talked and told him what I'm looking for and everything like that. And I just pretty much started. And it was, I made my stuff was done here initially first because it didn't have a factory overseas. And then I learned about Magic. Magic is
the
like
Magic
the
show.
largest
Yes.
It's the largest trade show in Las Vegas. And so myself and Hugh, my family would go to Las Vegas to do these shows, So again, I had a product, but I didn't have much. And I said, but no, these people were all in bulk. So this was a little wake-up call for me in a sense, because somebody might come and say, listen, I want 5 dozen. I want this. That can be a little rude awakening. It didn't happen, but I got some sales, initial sale, but enough to pique my curiosity to say, hey. So I got in on the parapet, and I know that I wanted to do it from the wholesale level and not just on a one-to-one. So that's what I did. So when after going to Las Vegas and coming back, I started retaining designers to start designing for me. And one thing led to another. It became very profitable. My stuff was made in China, ship here, and tariff was kind of expensive. But then we did pretty well after a while. I'm just kind of getting to the point in a sense. So we sell our products in Jamaica. We sold in Europe because we're trademarked not only in the US, but we're trademarked also in Jamaica. We're trademarked in Europe. We're trademarked in Canada. So no one can really go out there and use the name Yardman Style on the apparel side, because they'll get a letter from us to say C's, the C's and stuff. Yeah. So I made sure. So even before I started telling a lot of people about it, I made sure that I filed the trademark immediately, because I know sometimes people will just hear that there's a name, the company that you want to form, and they might try to beat me to it. So Mom was the word when I came back, and I just trademarked it, and I just we just went from there.
Yeah.
But it has been pretty well though. Yeah. But back in the days, we used to go to Magic. We used to have, the Sean John's Echo, Aniche, and all of those brands, because that's way back when I started it, several years ago. And but we did pretty well. We had a good run, when we did it and so forth. But it's again, I just went all in, and one of the good thing about starting Yardman Style on my own is I learned it from the ground up. Unlike somebody might, let's say a Puffy or whatever, might just hire people and they just do all the work. I was forced to get an RN, what's the RN number, get this and all of those stuff. So I forced to learn every single thing from the ground up. So I knew the business, to some extent. I knew what was involved and things like that. But it was not. I really, really enjoyed it, though.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed it. I like to kind of form my own companies than buy a franchise or buy something. I like the work that it takes to just get it off the ground,
Yeah,
I just enjoy that.
You like to build it and start it up on your own and learn all the intricacies.
Right, because I enjoy the work, Exactly. Yeah. So
that's quite a different business from the accounting firm.
Yeah,
too.
totally. So. Because as I said, I knew nothing about the apparel business, nothing whatsoever, and I even had even a travel agency. Again, knew nothing about that. Also, you didn't travel. It's named after my two sons, Kadeem and Hugh, and you didn't travel again. One of my principle, one of my foundation is never to ever depend on your employees. Any company that I start, I always want to know how to run that business. I never want to be El Ransom. I never wanted an employee can dictate certain things because they know it. And I'm forced my back against the wall. So even when I had the travel agency, I could book cruises, I could book airline travel, I could do everything because I just always wanted to know it. I didn't want to be El Ransom by any staff members. And way back in Jamaica, I used to work for an accounting firm, and I remember this accounting firm. This guy, he had a chartered accounting firm, but guess what? He didn't know taxes. He didn't know. He got it because he was doing the business that long. And so because he didn't know the business, I saw where the staff members pretty much run it. I remember this guy who was coming at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and you beg him to come in at 9, and he couldn't fire him because guess why? he was the backbone of the company. And so Scotty would come in at 1, 2 o'clock any day. And my boss, he could not fire me, he couldn't do anything. He was held ransom by this guy because he didn't know the work. And again, that was planted in my head from day one. Never let your staff know more than you. So that's what's part of my thing. I just wanted, I should know as much as they, as they know. So my thing was just always knowledge. Learn about whatever you're doing, so that you can have a hands-on say in the running of the company.
Oh, I wasn't even aware of the travel agency company. So
what happened is that the airline stopped paying commission, and I just was in the business of not receiving revenue and maintaining and paying 4 staff members. So once the airline stopped paying commission, I said, I didn't make it. And to go into the tour part of it was a little bit tricky. To go control that market. And so to get in on the tour side of it and do bulk travel, it was a little tricky. So once the airline decided to stop paying commission, I decided it was time to move on.
No, I feel you. I like that statement. I might be butchering it. I'm not in the business of not getting revenue. I might have to use that because I
can see that as like as like a billboard on or something.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Sean, you have any closing questions or comments?
No, man. I think we got like a real in-depth look at your business and then kind of your frame of mind and your philosophy on business too. So, this was a very comprehensive thing.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure being on with the both of you, Don and Sean, Danny and Sean. It's been a pleasure. I'm really glad that you invited me, and I just to come and just talk to you, to share, about something that I'm doing that I'm having fun doing, and it's really glad to be on your program.
All right, so that's a wrap on this week's episode with Mr. Hugh Johnson, founder and president of HAMJ Accounting Services. We hope you enjoyed his story and lessons learned along the way in starting his multiple businesses. As always, if you have a question you would like us to answer on the show, shoot us a message on any of our social media channels, or shoot us an email at questions@businessgrindshow.com. Also, don't forget to subscribe and share on Spotify and iTunes. See you again soon. In the meantime, keep grinding.
The Business Grind is for entertainment purposes. Opinions expressed are those solely of the host and guests. Please consult with a professional and exercise discretion before engaging in any business endeavors.
I'm out here on the grind. I'm out here on the grind.